college student in Indiana lived in a quiet house bordering some woods. By day, everything seemed ordinary, but at night, the forest gave the place an eerie atmosphere. Behind the house, beneath the patio, sat a hot tub, where things took a strange turn. It was late on a Saturday night, March 29th, just before spring break ended. The student invited 3 close friends over for one last gathering. They played pool in the garage, blasted music, and laughed over drinks. The mood was light, until someone suggested using the hot tub. The chilly night made the warm water even more inviting. After changing into swimwear, they settled into the tub, joking and losing track of time. Then, they heard it. The unmistakable sound of snapping branches, like footsteps approaching from the woods. It didn't sound like an animal, it sounded human. Silence fell over the group. One friend tried to brush it off, but nervous laughter followed. They turned the music louder, trying to ignore the unease. Then, a man stepped into the patio light. He wore a long black coat, white sweatpants, and a gaming headset. His expression was blank, his eyes wide. The group shouted at him, demanding to know who he was. He introduced himself as Seth, claiming he was 33 and had heard them laughing. He just wanted to join. Confused, they told him to leave. Instead, he stripped down to his underwear and climbed into the hot tub. Stunned, one of them pulled out a phone and began recording. When questioned, Seth gave vague answers until he casually admitted to harming a child. The mood shifted instantly. The group dragged him out of the water, yelling at him to go. Seth didn't resist. He simply stared, then walked back into the woods without a word. They rushed inside, locking every door. Some tried to laugh it off, but unease lingered. Later, 2 of them went back outside to secure the hot tub and found a phone left behind. When one of them picked it up, whatever was on the screen made him drop it in horror. Moments later, tapping came from a window. Seth stood there, pale-faced, grinning silently. The police were called, and when they arrived, Seth was still in the woods, staring at the house. He was arrested for trespassing. Days later, a nearby resident posted about another man attempting to break into her home. The realization hit hard. Seth might not have been acting alone. Years earlier, 3 high school friends decided to explore a sewer tunnel near their neighborhood. It was winter, and the tunnel, dark and foreboding, had always intrigued them. That night, they finally ventured inside. At first, it was just graffiti and dripping water. Then they spotted a freshly painted date, 6/19/19. Unease set in. The deeper they went, the colder it became, with icicles hanging like jagged teeth. Then came the sound. Something heavy hitting stone, echoing from the darkness. They bolted, stumbling in panic. Outside, one realized he'd dropped his phone. Against his friend's protests, he went back. This time, the tunnel felt different, oppressive. Their flashlights flickered weakly. Then, a scream. Inhuman, layered, like multiple voices, ripped through the silence. They ran, not stopping until they reached the car. Later that night, one of them heard his doorbell ring. No one was there. Had they been followed? The question haunted them. In April 2022, a man named Connor took a remote construction job to save money. He enjoyed the solitude, often hiking alone. One evening, deep in the woods, he smelled smoke and saw a flickering firelight. Curious, he followed it and found a bizarre scene. Shopping carts tied to trees, a charred duck ornament with a melted doll perched on it. The air felt wrong. He took photos, then hurried away. That night, as he slept in his tent, whistling woke him. Footsteps circled his camp, cutting off his escape route. He ran blindly into the forest, pursued by what sounded like multiple people. Hiding in the underbrush, he waited until dawn before creeping back to safety. He reported it, but nothing came of it. To this day, he believes he stumbled upon something ritualistic, something he was never meant to see. The lesson? Trust your instincts. If something feels off, leave. Not everyone gets that chance. Here's the continuation of the rewritten text. Years later, another unsettling encounter unfolded in a different part of the country. A woman named Lauren had just moved into a rural farmhouse, seeking peace after a hectic city life. The house was old but charming, surrounded by fields and a dense stretch of woods at the back of the property. At first, everything was fine, until she started noticing small, strange things. Items would go missing and reappear in odd places. Doors she swore she'd locked would be slightly ajar. She dismissed it as forgetfulness, but then the noises started. Late at night, she'd hear faint knocking. 3 slow raps, always in the same pattern, coming from the back door. When she checked, no one was there. One evening, she set up a camera facing the door, determined to catch whatever or whoever was responsible. The footage revealed nothing at first, just empty darkness. Then, at exactly 2:17 a.m., a shadowy figure stepped into frame. It didn't walk like a person. Its movements were jerky, unnatural. It paused at the door, raised a hand, and knocked 3 times. Lauren packed her things the next morning and left. She never went back. Elsewhere, a group of urban explorers ventured into an abandoned asylum, a place infamous for its grim history. They'd heard the stories, whispers of lingering spirits, of doors slamming shut on their own. But they weren't believers. They just wanted footage. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. Their flashlights cut through the darkness as they moved down crumbling hallways, past rusted gurneys and peeling wallpaper. Then, one of them noticed something odd. Fresh footprints in the dust. Too small to be an adult's. They followed the trail, unease growing, until they reached a room at the end of the hall. The door was slightly open. Inside, a child's toy sat in the center of the floor. A porcelain doll, its painted smile cracked with age. One of them reached for it. The moment his fingers brushed it, a deafening scream echoed through the building. They ran, not stopping until they were outside, gasping for air. Later, reviewing their footage, they saw it, a small, pale hand, reaching out from the shadows just before the scream. They never went back. The common thread in these stories? A feeling, that instinctive prickle of warning when something isn't right. Whether it's footsteps in the dark, an unnatural presence, or an encounter that defies explanation, the message is the same. Listen to that feeling. Because sometimes the things that go bump in the night aren't just in your head, and sometimes they don't want you to leave. Here's the continuation, maintaining the eerie tone while introducing new unsettling encounters. The Night Driver. A long-haul trucker named Vince knew the risks of empty highways after midnight, but nothing prepared him for what happened on Route 87, a lonely stretch of road cutting through the Nevada desert. It started with headlights, a vehicle pacing him for miles, never passing, never falling back. When Vince tried slowing down, the lights matched his speed. When he sped up, they kept perfect distance. Then, around 3 a.m., the other driver flashed their brights, 3 rapid bursts, like a signal. Vince's CB radio crackled. To life, a distorted voice whispered, "You should pull over." He grabbed the mic. "Who is this?" Static, then clearer. "Look behind you." His blood turned to ice. In his rearview mirror, the pursuing vehicle was gone. But the voice came again, this time from the passenger seat. "I said look behind you." He never drove that route again. The basement apartment. When Rachel rented the basement apartment, the landlord mentioned the previous tenant had left. Suddenly, she didn't ask why. The price was too good to pass up. The first week was fine. Then she began waking to the sound of scratching inside the walls. The super insisted it was rats, but the noises came at the same time every night, 2:34 a.m., and stopped the moment she turned on the lights. One sleepless night, she pressed her ear to the wall. The scratching paused. Then, from the other side, something scratched back. in perfect mimicry of her own movement. The next morning, she peeled back a loose section of wallpaper. Etched into the drywall were hundreds of tiny tally marks, and a single sentence, carved deep. "She still thinks I'm in the walls." Rachel moved out that afternoon. The landlord refused to return her deposit. A late-night radio DJ named Felix loved taking calls from insomniacs and night owls, but one call still haunts him. The voice was hushed, frantic. "They're in my house. I locked myself in the closet. Please, I think..." A thud, then whispering. Too many voices overlapping. Felix stayed on the line, urging the caller to speak. After 30 seconds of silence, the connection cut. He reported it to police, but no missing persons matched the description. The next night, his station received a package, a cassette tape labeled "For Felix." When he played it, the same whispered voices filled the booth. This time, they said his name. The station fired him after he smashed the equipment. They found the tape later, playing softly in an empty studio. Final warning. These stories share more than just fear. They carry a pattern. The moment when curiosity turns to dread. When a person realizes they've crossed into something they don't understand. So if you hear footsteps with no source, if you feel eyes on you in an empty room, if something whispers your name when no one's there, don't investigate, run. The reflection game. Emma loved vintage mirrors. When she found an ornate, full-length one at a flea market, she didn't question why it was priced so low. The seller barely made eye contact as he took her money. At first, it was just a beautiful decoration. Then she noticed discrepancies. Her reflection would sometimes blink when she didn't. One morning, she swore she saw her mirror image smile at her as she walked away. The final straw came when she woke at 3 a.m. to see her reflection still standing there, wide awake, watching her sleep. When she screamed, it screamed back, a second too late. She threw a sheet over the mirror that night. In the morning, the sheet lay neatly folded on the floor. The mirror was spotless. The wrong neighbor, Jake, knew everyone on his block, except the man in house 413. The lights were always on, but no one ever came or went. Just once, at dusk, he saw a silhouette in the upstairs window. Then the letters started appearing in his mailbox. No postmark, just his name and shaky handwriting. Each contained a single Polaroid photo of Jake, taken from outside his house while he slept. The last one showed his bedroom window. Written on the back, "You should really close your blinds." When Jake confronted 413, the door swung open to reveal an empty house. The walls were covered in identical Polaroids, hundreds of them, all of Jake, all taken at night. The house was listed as vacant for 12 years. The night shift. Nurses at St. Luke's Hospital knew the rules. Never answer room 317's call light after midnight. The room had been empty since the 1980s. But when Sarah heard the buzzer at 2:17 a.m., her curiosity won. The door was ajar. An old man sat up in bed, smiling. "I've been waiting," he said, patting the chair beside him. "Sit. Let's talk about your grandmother." Sarah froze. Her grandmother had died at Luke's, in this room. The monitors suddenly flatlined. When she turned back, the bed was made, the room spotless. The call light still glowed above the door. At the nurse's station, the logbook showed no record of room 317's light being activated. But someone had written in the margin, in handwriting Sarah recognized from childhood birthday cards, "You were always my favorite. Final thoughts." The world is full of these moments, when reality tilts just enough to show the cracks. Maybe they're coincidences, maybe they're warnings, or maybe they're invitations. After all, some doors should never be opened, some reflections shouldn't be acknowledged, and some rooms have been waiting a very long time for visitors. Sleep well tonight, but leave a light on. The last passenger. Daniel's taxi license had one rule scrawled in the margins of his logbook: never pick up fares from the old train depot after midnight. But when the glowing 12:34 on his dashboard clock matched the exact amount shown on the meter from his last ghost ride, he knew he'd broken it again. She appeared at the usual spot, pale hands clutching a 1940S Smile suitcase, her dress damp as if caught in a storm that wasn't falling. "Same address?" he asked, voice steady. She nodded without meeting his eyes. The real horror came when he glanced at the rearview mirror. The back seat was empty, yet he could still hear her gloved fingers tapping the window in that familiar impatient rhythm. 3 slow raps, always 3. The library. Hold. When the university librarian processed the overdue book, her blood ran cold. The Anatomy of Silence by E. Werner had been checked out in 1923. The borrower's card bore her own signature, in faded ink in her own handwriting. That night, she found the book reshelved in the restricted section. A newspaper clipping fluttered out, a 1924 obituary for a librarian named Eleanor Werner. Her photo stared back with the librarian's own face. The next morning, campus security found the book displayed prominently on the circulation desk. Its spine now read, "The Anatomy of You." The birthday gift Mia's great-aunt insisted the antique music box was special. "It only plays when it wants to," she whispered at the will reading. At 3:33 a.m. on Mia's 30th birthday, the dormant box suddenly began playing a warped version of Happy Birthday. Through the tiny window, Mia saw not gears turning, but tiny hands clapping in perfect time. The next morning, the box sat open on her dresser. Inside, curled like a sleeping child, was a lock of hair matching Mia's exact shade. A note in her great-aunt's handwriting read, "She always preferred you to me." Why these stories matter. These aren't just campfire tales. They're warnings etched into reality itself. The universe's way of saying, some doors exist for a reason. Some shadows have weight, and some gifts aren't gifts at all. The next time you hear your name whispered in an empty house or find an object that shouldn't exist, remember, curiosity is human, but survival, that's instinct. Turn around, walk away, and whatever you do, don't look back. The night watchman's log. Security guard Tom Patterson's graveyard shift at the abandoned textile mill was supposed to be easy money. Then he found the notebook. Day 1. Footsteps on the catwalk at 2:47 a.m. Checked. Nobody there. Day 3. Machines in weaving room 3 turned on by themselves. Cut power at breaker. Day 7. Saw her again. Woman in blue work dress by the loading dock. Vanished when I flashed my light. The final entry chilled him. They don't know I can see them from the office. The night crew still clocks in, still works, still watches me watching them. I'm leaving this for the next guy. Don't turn your back on the looms. Tom quit after his first week. They never found his replacement's uniform. The sublet. When Alex moved into the cheap downtown apartment, the super warned, "Don't use the medicine cabinet." But after a month of midnight scratching sounds, his curiosity won. Inside he found 7 identical bottles of prescription pills, all in his name, all filled yesterday. The labels listed conditions he didn't have, yet. That night, Alex woke to the sound of the bathroom sink running. Through the cracked door, he saw a figure standing at the mirror, shoulders slumped, in a way that looked exactly like him after a bad day, exactly like he'd look in 20 years. The medicine cabinet door swung shut with a click. When Alex checked it at dawn, the bottles were gone. In their place, a single tooth, still bloody. The highway call. Trucker Lisa Monroe knew Route 17's dead zones by heart. That's why when her CB crackled to life in the no-service stretch near mile marker 113, she grabbed the mic. "Breaker 19, who's out there?" The voice that answered wasn't human. It was the sound of crumpling metal and shattering glass given words. Lisa, you should have taken the exit. Her headlights illuminated the road sign she'd somehow missed. Dieter ahead, bridge out. Lisa swerved just in time. At the impound yard the next morning, the tow truck driver stared at her cab's CB unit, its power cord dangling, never plugged in. Why you're reading this? These stories find their way to those who need them most. Maybe you'll dismiss them as fiction. Maybe you'll check your locks twice tonight. But somewhere between these words and your reality, a door just opened that wasn't open before. A shadow moved without light to cast it. Something that's been waiting a very long time just realized. You can see it now. Sleep with one eye open. The stories aren't done with you yet. Final words. The hour grows late. Your screen's glow may be the only light left burning in the house. Outside, the wind carries whispers that aren't wind at all. The floorboard that just creaked, you've lived here long enough to know. W. Hitch, ones settle on their own. These stories linger for a reason. They're echoes of something older than fear itself. A warning carved into the dark by those who came before. A truth as cold as the space between stars. You are never truly alone. Now go. Turn off the light. Walk down the hall without looking back. And try, just try, not to wonder what's been reading these words over your shoulder this whole time.